Okay, let's get started. I'm sure we're going to have continuing people to come in. We are recording this session, so you'll be able to go back to it, reference it, or even send it to a colleague after the fact. Thank you for attending this Smart Leadership webinar series episode. My name is Bill Inman. I'm Executive Vice President at SmartSearch. We're very happy to have you here for this session, how to use automation to stay full in a candidate-starved market. Obviously, a very timely topic on multiple fronts. If you're in the recruiting industry, you're probably starved for talent. And if you're not, then maybe we should hold a webinar with you as well. But I think either way, you're going to get a lot of information from this one. And then in addition, automation is something that is becoming more and more prevalent. And not only because it's a buzzword, it's a key topic, it's trending, but because you need it just to keep pace with your talent competitors in the marketplace. So it's a really, really important topic. My background is 25 years experience in HR tech as a founder and also as an executive. I have a couple of exits. I was lucky enough to be awarded both an AI and a blockchain patent in the space. So having Lauren on today to talk about her experience with automation is really timely for me, important for me, and I'm sure important for you as well. In the 90s, I was a buyer of SmartSearch. SmartSearch has been around for 35 years. It was one of the first applicant tracking systems ever. Many of our clients are on today, some of which I believe have been with us for 3 decades, which for any company is an amazing run for sure. So I came full circle. I'm back now as the EVP. Very excited to work with LJ Morris, the CEO. Sylvia Dalby is on as well from SmartSearch. Some of you may know her. And we have a lot of exciting releases coming up and a whole evolutionary roadmap with our technology that takes us into the emerging tech space. So I think this topic of automation is important not only for us to learn from Lauren, who's one of the top experts in the industry at it, but also it's previewing where SmartSearch is going. We already have our smart AI module now, but we're continuing to improve in that area. So everybody, let me introduce Lauren Jones to you. Lauren is a superstar in the industry. She's truly impactful. You probably already know this. That's why she was named to the top 15 staffing professionals to watch in 2021, and she's continuing to rise in that area. We're lucky to have her because she's starting this month a barnstorming tour of keynotes and speaking events. So we were lucky to get her in this time block to have her on. She's been in the industry for over 24 years, although she doesn't look it. Many of us have been in for a little bit longer or longer than that. We've seen so many changes. She's seen it all. She is an industry tech expert and a real trailblazer. To that end, she founded Leap Consulting Solutions, where she works with clients on digital transformation as rapidly and effectively as possible. It's where many of the lessons I'm sure she'll talk about today come from. She also, and many of you may know her from this, she started the Lady Leaders Group. Along with Leslie Vickery, who is another well-known name in the staffing industry. And she and Leslie co-wrote the foreword to and helped organize, which is a fantastic book. And Sylvia will tell you, because she's gifting it all over the place to her colleagues, the book called Together We Rise, which is a collection of stories exemplifying the power of women supporting women. It's been extremely popular in the staffing industry. Again, many of you probably already know that. She spoke on most podcasts. She still hosts the You Own the Experience podcast. She co-hosts that. You've probably seen her there as well. Staffing Hub, HR Liftoff, and others. So she's very active in her community. She's a very proud mom to 2 daughters. She has her companion by her side that might make an appearance, Mila, that we saw while we were lighting up the meeting today. There's Mila back there. And she lives in Northern California today with her husband, Peter. So Lauren, thank you so much for making the time for us today. We appreciate having you here.
Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to be here. Sylvia, Bill, everyone who's, made this magic happen. I'm just, you make me sound much cooler than I really am. But I am just tickled to be here talking about automation, talking about the state of our industry, the candidate industry right now. So I'm excited to get into it. And I just thank all of you for being so gracious with your time and having me here.
Thank you. Yeah, I just looked at the attendee list. It's doubled since we started this, so it'll continue to grow. Now, the format of the call today is a fireside chat. It's a discussion format. You're involved. So we want you as attendees to ask questions. Sylvia is going to monitor the questions. She'll stop Lauren and I as we have discussions. So we have our canned questions, which will kind of lead the topics. and the discussion, but we want to hear from you. So we're going to go for about 40 minutes. We're going to have a discussion, and we're going to leave 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. But Sylvia, as she gets a flurry of questions that come in or receives a timely question, she's going to stop Lauren and I, and we'll address those questions. Now, the key to that is please put your questions. Like we want to interact with you. We want to keep this lively. We want to make sure we're giving you the right information, the timely information. So no question is a bad question. So please keep that coming. So as you may know, and I'm sure you know, we are in a candidate-starved market. So how do you stay full in a candidate-starved market? Up to about 70% from a Manpower Group study of companies globally have reported talent shortages. About 10 years ago, it was about 35% of companies have reported talent shortages. And we're in a new era. Great resignation, the great acceleration of technology, the pandemic, those are all things we'll discuss today. It's different. And you have to really think deeply about your purpose, your mission, and how you use tactics in the industry. So, Lauren, I'm going to kick this off with a question to you, and then we can start the discussion. Again, want to hear from the whole crowd. So we are in this strange candidate market that's challenging most of us on the call today. We have HR recruiters on and staffing professionals as well. So, Lauren, what's the state of the market, and what are you seeing and hearing out there with regards to these challenges?
Well, the state of the market is the balance of power has shifted. Employers are no longer in the driver's seat, and we have an employee-driven market. You're seeing things, employees are rethinking the way that they want to work. They have more to say now. They want a platform to do so. And so we're in this very strange time that I think, creates a little friction up front, but I think it's a beautiful time to solve for some of the industry problems. The statistics are pretty astounding. I mean, when you had 40% in the Great Resignation, you had almost 4 million people a month for a long period of time resigning. And primarily it was lack of investment in training. It was the inability to have a hybrid work environment, and workers. I think what we forgot as employers is that employees are consumers, and the way that they are consuming post-COVID is totally different. Remember, we got really good at Postmates, having your groceries delivered through Instacart and Amazon, where you could buy something in a second and return it the second later, and so it's this immediacy, this omnichannel, meeting the consumer where they are and not losing sight of them throughout the process, whether it's via text, whether it's via chat, whether it's via email. It's meeting the consumer where they are. And we've, as employers, I think we lost trust through COVID. There's no doubt that the mass layoffs through COVID really stretched the trust between employer and employee. And you're seeing that change. Quiet quitting is a great representation of lack of trust, lack of feeling valued, lack of feeling invested in, and overall burnout. And so in a talent-starved market, how do you get past that? How do you stand out? And so we're going to talk today about some of those strategies, automation being one really impactful way to keep up with the pace with which consumers are moving. And that consumer behavior, which really, I don't think in the past we had seen those consumer behaviors really matriculate into, the job seeking ways until now. And now we're seeing, I want immediacy. I expect a chatbot now. I expect, to engage with some sort of robot and or automation. There is this expectation for immediacy. And the average hire time in our industry was over 38 days. So employees are saying, no, I don't have to wait that long. Walmart's got it down to 10 minutes, and so how do we create speed and agility and experience that's sticky with the candidate? And so, I'm all of that to say the state of the market right now is in flux, and it is a candidate's market right now. And we have to find ways to stand out from the get-go, right out of the gate. That's
Yeah,
a
totally
big
makes sense.
responsibility.
Yeah, and I know that you're going to share some amazing tactics along those lines. I'm super excited about, this mix of, we're talking about what employers should do to get ahead of any additional great resignation or amplification of that, but then the automation. And, some stats have shown that in between now and 2025, 80 million jobs are going to be automated out. So we're talking about recruiting automation really on this call and using it. But in the workforce, 80 million jobs will be changed or shifted or need to be retrained because of AI globally. And then 800 million jobs will be shifted by the time we get to 2030. So, however, it's not going to be a net loss because 12 million new jobs are going to be created because of automation. So this is in the workplace, and we're going to talk about how do we make those that adapt to that. So the point was, I don't see the fluctuation stopping. I think we're going to continue to be in this disruptive market that's affecting employers. So, but today, why do you think employers are having such a difficult time fulfilling their needs with talent?
Well, first and foremost is, again, not meeting the candidate where they are. We still have traditional hiring practices going on. We still have lengthy applications. We still have these lengthy hiring processes that are prohibitive to getting the candidate in, creating a meaningful relationship, establishing some trust, and then making that qualify or not qualify. So one thing that employers can do right out of the gate is shorten that duration to hire time. Rethink your application, rethink that process. Is that 42-page packet really required? Look at your most viable hiring process, just like we would look at a new tech product, right? MVP. What's your MVP? What's your V1? So if we're talking version 1 for your hiring practice, let's really get down to the nitty-gritty of what you actually need. And then also think about that initial experience. So I'm encouraging all firms, any firm that I'm working with, and you have a lot of professional services firms that get very concerned about experience with bots. There is an elegance to applying a bot if you are in professional services, but it can be done. And it can, once again, shorten that time to hire, which is what candidates are looking for. They're looking to come in, establish a relationship, and looking for that next great job. I think we also have to think about how we screen candidates, because in the past, we would look at too much moving on a resume as a negative thing. And I think we have to rethink as recruiters the way that we look at the content on a resume. And whilst automation doesn't have much to do with that, the way that you're thinking about consuming that information matters. If you're using a parsing tool, I beg of you to rethink the times of or the duration of time that somebody has worked someplace, and really dig into why they've made the moves that they've made. Remember, a CV is curriculum vitae, which is course of life. That course of life should not have to be one straight line. And I think we've already determined, as the millennials have shown us, that we can navigate all over to go get different experience. It's being the good candidate is going to be able to articulate that to the recruiter. And the good recruiter is going to look at that resume and go, tell me why you made some of these moves. So the first thing that employers have to do is rethink what that first impression is. And if you're in professional services and you're afraid of a bot, there is an elegant way for it to be done. And whether that's connecting human to human faster, or simply looking for the convert, which is what is a bot's number one path in life or purpose in life, is conversion. And that is to get the first name, last name, email address. And if that's all you get to capture, that's information that you didn't have before. So I want you to rethink your agency's website and how quickly you can capture and convert candidates when you got their attention. Now keep it and go back and get it if you need to, if you lost their attention for a minute.
Lauren, there is one question coming in. Something that you said that really resonated, though, about rethinking the process. I've been fond of talking about the 3 R's with respect to the candidate experience, and the 3 R's are respect, response, and resolution. Those are exactly the same things that customers want, right? And now, to your point, there's a 4th R, and that 4th R is right away. Right?
Yes.
I want my respect.
Wow.
I want my response, and I want my resolution and I want it now, right? I want it right away. But when you're talking about the website now, how much role do you think that the marketing department of an organization should or could play in the development of how to better treat candidates as customers? Because that's where this is going, right? They're like customers. They want it now. And we've talked forever about how marketing, recruiting is marketing. Well, no, not really. It hasn't been. But now is the time to do that. So can you talk a little bit about how can you get your marketing people to really understand the urgency and help create that on your website when the career site is such a big destination for a lot of visitors?
Such a huge part of it, and once you get that convert, automation can play this beautiful game in creating that stickiness experience that we're talking about. But marketing's job is to be the mouthpiece of how you get your message out there. I'm working on a bot right now with another customer, and they're very, very white glove, very, very concerned. And so I'm like, don't call it a bot, call it a concierge. So here is your concierge. Let's make the assumption that every single person that comes to that website is a six-figure candidate. What would the difference in the experience be? Immediacy. And so what we did is we actually just created a Teams integration whereby that six-figure candidate goes directly to a direct hire recruiter. No in between, no noise, no screening, no nothing. And so what did we do? We got conversion. We got first name, last name, email address, and we got immediacy. And so marketing's job in that is to articulate your brand, to articulate your culture, and so whether it's, we're so glad, your bot talking the way that your business talks, that's marketing's job, is to frame the way the business talks, be the Wendy's, Wendy's on Twitter. I love the clapbacks that Wendy's has on Twitter. They crack me up. And so if your business had a personality, marketing's job is to vocalize that through the experience, and nomenclature. Verbiage is so profoundly important in getting the brand vibe, whether it's casual, formal, whatever that is. Marketing's hand in that is articulating it and creating process and creating fun and stickiness and all of that good stuff right out of the gate, that first impression. And I will say, we have a lot of call to action these days, right? And that can confuse a consumer. Right? Think about the simplicity of Amazon. Think about the simplicity of Zappos, and apply that. Keep it simple. Not too many calls to action. What are we trying to do? We're trying to convert the candidate and get something that we didn't have a second ago.
That's really good stuff. Thank you, Sylvia, for the questions. Please keep them coming. And audience, please continue to send your questions to Sylvia. So many important things you just said. So CRM and the consumer aspect. And I think a lot of the smart recruiters on this particular webinar today, they understand that. But we've gone from being, and I've been in the industry like yourself a quarter century, Sylvia, too. We've gone from being screeners that operated newspapers and job boards and then social media to now being marketers. And that's a really different skill set. You have to be able to write a good headline. You need to be able to capture people's attention. You need to be selling, which is just part of life, really. But so that's really interesting. And I liked how you said, instead of bot, use concierge. So just, it's the same automation, but you're looking at it a different way. And it's true. It is really concierging somebody through the industry. So as a tangent to the question we just asked and was asked as well, there's a balance. So you have to operate concierge, aka bot, but then, which helps like screen in volume or actually get the attention in volume. But then we're talking about one-to-one relationship and screening people. So we ask them, why did you make that change on your resume? Why were you only there a year? How do you balance the automation and that very intensive personal work?
Well, the automations should now give you the time to have those more meaningful conversations. Remember, I apply a rule, and I want people on relationships, automation on repetition. So where you have repetitious tasks, put your automation on that. Where you need to form a relationship, That's where you put your people. And so the idea is, if we have a bot, so for a light industrial bot, really what's important there is understanding what skills do they have, right? So a bot can easily say, give us your 3 primary skills. We're interested to hear where you work best, however you want to formulate that question. What are you really good at? Give us 3 things. And maybe it's a drop down where they can choose, or maybe it's free form typing where they can enter in the skills that they have. I would always recommend a drop down because you can control the search functionality within your ATS that way. But being able to set up some automation in the screening process will then allow that person to go to the right recruiter, right? As opposed to getting moved around all over the place, or inevitably that happens in our industry, going into the black hole abyss of nothingness, right? I worked for a very, very large corporation that percentage-wise responded to 28% of its candidates. That is unacceptable. You need to have an incoming candidate management strategy. Incoming candidate management strategy. So that means that we understand who's coming in, where they should be applied from a vertical perspective, and that we have an action plan to respond to them. Whether you're putting them in a journey, which is an automation path or a blueprint path, or whether you are having somebody talk with them live, a sourcing group or what have you, either way, we have to create that experience right from the get-go. So again, automation is applied on the repetitious tasks, and that allows us more time from a balance perspective to have more meaningful conversations, so you can create that brand trust with the candidate.
Yeah. Did I hear that right? Bots on automation, people on relationships. Is that, and I think I have those swapped, but that's the gist. So.
Automation on repetition, people on relationships.
Got it. Yeah, it makes sense. The stat I looked up before our call doing some research is from Price Waterhouse was 49% of respondents to their study declined a job offer because of a poor recruitment experience. Mm-hmm. And that 5th R that Sylvia mentioned that right now bots help with, concierge with. And so that makes a lot of sense. It makes sense that you would automate to save time so you can put people on relationships. So that makes a lot of sense.
You see
that does dovetail into a question about the skills. Like Lauren, you mentioned that we need to rethink the content and what are people looking for. Like if we're parsing out skills, those are hard skills. And we were just having an internal conversation this week about how the jobs of tomorrow don't exist today. So how do you quantify those skills? And the question, this is about what candidates are looking for, because they're not just looking for a job anymore. They're looking for values, right? They're looking for the cultural fit. They're also looking for training and upskilling. Like what else are candidates, what do candidates want that we can measure their soft skills and also offer them the opportunity to put them to use? Like, do you have any thoughts around that?
So LinkedIn did a study and found that 94% of employees would stay at a company longer if that company showed a commitment to helping them learn. So you want to create stickiness, create that upskilling, reskilling opportunity, or helping individuals understand how their skills may apply. So I was part of an amazing project in my former life in helping veterans get, re-enter civilian life in the workplace. And what I found astounding was that the military occupational specialty, right? A veteran gets out of the military and they're given a VMET. It's the verification of military experience and training. And then they're given their applied military occupational specialties and then told to go on their merry way. But employers don't write their job descriptions with military occupational specialties in mind. PG&E, however, decided to go through every single one of their job descriptions and put meaningful associations to military occupational specialties. And what in turn happened? Their entire workforce, the look and feel of their workforce changed, and they had this abundance of veterans being hired within their organization because they created association of skill to job description.
Right.
So
well, you knocked it out of the park on that one, Lauren, because that's one thing we've been saying recently too, is that job descriptions are horrible, right? They need to
Did
be
you
better.
know that the average job description is 6.5 years old?
Yeah.
The average job description is 6.5 years old. So we as an industry are just regurgitating old garbage.
Right. No, my number one thing for anybody listening to this today is go look at your job descriptions, rewrite your job descriptions and frame them in a more appealing way towards the modern candidates. I have one more question that came in. It's about the bots. Can you give, or the concierge, can you give a couple of examples of how a concierge or a bot would interact with a new candidate to capture that information, like to grab them?
Yeah, I mean, just the way that as soon as a candidate comes onto a website, or you can do it one of two ways. As soon as they engage with the brand, just general coming to www.agency.com, coming on there, the bot can come up, or you can choose very strategically to do it only when they go to the jobs page, right? And then the bot appears. It's really up to you what experience you want them to have, and where, understanding kind of where you are, right? Understanding where you are so that you can see, integral improvement along the way. But however you decide, that first introduction is, we're so glad you're here. So I always love a good, warm welcome to the candidate when they're coming onto the site. We're so glad that you took interest, or we're so glad that you're here. In case we get disconnected, who am I talking to? You get the first and last name. And if we ever want to reach out to you, what's your email address? It's all in how you say those things and pose them that make them less scary to the consumer that's coming to your site. And as long as you can capture those things, and that's why I always coach my customers who are thinking of applying a bot, have a V1 and watch it work, and take in what your conversion stats turn into, and then try adding on a little bit more, and then you'll find a balance depending upon your specific vertical as to how many questions you can ask before people lose interest and walk away. So always start with the most simple thing in mind, just to convert and get the information that you wouldn't have had a second ago. And then you can add some compounding questions, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm sure that you have probably dozens, if not hundreds, of tactics on how to use bots from your experience. And this is one tool, right?
Well, high volume is going to be different than the concierge, right? The high volume, it's about immediacy. Let's get you in here right away, and getting them scheduled, getting them something tangible. The more professional, they want to really speak with somebody right away. So it's really just about knowing who your audience is and what they're looking for. Your light industrial worker, right? That's going to be on a mobile device. Right. So we want to, it has to be mobile first. We have to be able to get that mobile user, because 78% of your light industrial folk are using a mobile device to apply for a job. So it's being mindful of those types of things and what you want that experience to be.
Yeah, having run staffing firms that had both professional and industrial, they're very different processes.
Yes.
So this is great so far. We're already at the bottom of the hour. I mean, this is just flying along. Yeah.
Holy Hannah.
We're like a third of the way through our questions. Now I'm not going to try to stuff them all in. We're just going to keep the flow going. It is a fireside chat. Can I ask you, your bots, first of all, and maybe we'll start with, how long have you been implementing bots, and are you seeing their usage increasing, and who's asking you for help with it, the type of companies?
Well, agencies of all shapes and sizes are asking for help with it, because I think that they see that this is now table stakes, that getting some of that automation or that bot experience. People want that immediacy right now. I mean, we saw a 236% increase in digital transformations between 2021 and now. 236% increase in digital transformation, some form of digital transformation. So, we help agencies of all sizes with bots. I'm actually on the advisory board for Staffing Engine. So I felt so passionately about bots that I joined a board so I could help influence what that looked like and what that experience was, and how you could brand a bot. I want a bot. I always hated the sort of rigidity of the of some of the older products in the market that had their product name on the bot. I wanted, Vera Volt. I wanted, I wanted Kira Kelly, I wanted to name my bot. I wanted to brand my bot. I wanted it to look different. And so if you do it right, it can be such a cool representation of your brand. And that's really what we coach, customers through, and what tools like Staffing Engine do is really help agencies, create tangibility with something that seems out of touch or out of reach.
That's good. So it sounds like companies are really understanding the table stakes part of it. So far for me, just to recap, I'm hearing a lot about the marketing side. Having been a CEO, marketing, when you hire a marketing team, you really want them to know about online marketing. And it's not just about being a recruiter. You need to know how to diagram a funnel. You need to know how to write jobs, which are essentially headlines to capture attention and the benefits of the company. And now you need to really know how to evolve a bot to be the most efficient. So if you're a VP of HR or a CEO, owner of a staffing company, it's a different skill set than it was 10, 20 years ago. So it's really interesting. So
well, now you've got diversity, equity, and inclusion coming into it. And there's, if you are feeling overwhelmed at the idea of re-looking at your job descriptions, hire a Get Optimal or what have you. 98% of job postings are written with masculine bias. And in this world of diversity, equity, and inclusion, my goodness, you should be rethinking your job descriptions to ensure that they're inclusive. And so, yeah, marketing has a big job with all of the different, important objectives that we have to be, equal opportunity employers, to have diversity, equity, inclusion, to, honor and respect pronouns, all of that. And that means rethinking the way that we distribute the material to consumers.
Yeah, with regard, even in the traditional or trad recruiting kind of tactics, you have to have the DEI and the focus and understand what's the culture of today's society. Otherwise, you look really old, irrelevant, or clueless really quick. And then
really fast.
Right, and that's a differentiator between talent, if you can recruit, or the competition gets the talent. Mm-hmm. And so, job description 6 years old. Come on, that's crazy, because the language of the world has changed in the past 6 years. But then also when you add emerging technology onto it, like AI and chatbots or narrow AI, those need to be updated and evolved constantly, because it's a dialogue that's happening now. And with neural nets and other things that are happening in emerging tech, they become more and more like a human, and you forget they're not a human at some point. So boy, it's a lot to keep up with. All right, back to the regularly scheduled questions I had. So we'll take a little bit of a shift. So besides bots, right? You get a candidate to your bot, but what are the best practices in attracting candidates today?
Well, we need to articulate to the candidate what's in it for them, right? So the faster recruiting process is going to be key. We got to shore up that 38 days. It's unacceptable. And we have to understand that remote recruiting is now mainstream, right? And that's the way that we work, and that candidates want to have that flexibility as well. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's a huge, so understanding that part of your marketing department's job is to ensure that all of the things that are important to society right now, that they are important to you. So culture is a huge thing to attracting candidates. And look, candidate attraction is really interesting, because again, it's It's about meeting the candidate where they are. You see a lot of candidate aggregation happening right now. You've got, Hire Easy, Selligence, all doing things that Entello and Open Web and TalentBin tried to do, but couldn't, never really executed on. And now you see this candidate aggregation, a little and ways to engage with candidates more organically. So meeting them where they are. Remember, we used to have beers and geeks, right? And then too many recruiters started showing up, so the geeks stopped showing up, and so that recruiting resource dried up. And it's happened throughout the industry that where we used to get talent changes, and so we have to remain agile and flexible, and we have to meet people where they are. So now you see cool tools like human predictions, where it is candidate aggregation, but gives you a piece of information to be able to go and engage with that candidate. Maybe it's on GitHub, or maybe it's on Twitter, or engage with them where they are. Meet the candidate where they are. And so attraction is, I look at it like, I have a course called social selling, and I have a course called social recruiting. And that social recruiting is about consistency. So if there's one piece of advice I would give an agency on attraction, it would be consistency. We see a lot of agencies who are like, oh, we'll do it for 6 weeks, or we'll do it for 90 days. No. This is a breakfast, lunch, and dinner ongoing thing, just like training. And the 3 departments that get hit the hardest when we have down times or we're in a recession are marketing, training, and IT. Those departments tend to have layoffs first, and they're the most important when we're in times like these, to go and create candidate attraction. Tell the world who your brand is. And if you haven't done an ecosystem exercise of really establishing your core values, your mission, your vision, and your values, people want something to connect with. And so attraction is about articulating that in a meaningful way, meeting them where they are. It's a big job.
Yeah, good stuff. So just to recap what you said, there's one radio station that's most important to everybody, even in this time. It's called WIIFM. What's in it for me? That radio station, everybody tunes into, no matter what the technology changes are. So yeah, I totally agree with you. We have to be thinking about what they want. And then we attract who we are, right? So we, as recruiters, but what a mirror to be a recruiter today. You have to be culturally relevant. You have to be able to listen and talk to people. You have to be good with technology. These are all global trends that we have to be on top of, because we're expected to attract people that are going to change the company, drive revenue, create innovation, all this stuff. We're supposed to do great customer service. So it really is on us to be better and better and better, to learn these things. And it seems like one thing that it seems like you've been is a lifetime learner in your career, and then you've imparted that to your constituents too. So really interesting.
I love starting out a dummy at anything. Everybody's got to start somewhere, and I clearly I love to read. But yes, if you can always be a student, and the best recruiters are really do a great job at personal branding, and they do a great job at that consistency. And I always used to tell my recruiters, I ran a very large region here in Northern California, and I would always say, you are the Pied Piper. Let's go Pied Pipe. And so what are you going to be really great at recruiting, and sticking to that vertical and getting all the talent. It was like in sales, right? We would say, own your zip code, and I'm own your vertical. And if you can get your recruiters owning a specific vertical or a specific modality, if you're in healthcare, or a specific skill and or function in light industrial, you can find meaningful ways to attract great talent.
Yeah, that micro niche specialty for a recruiter, being the best that there is at a certain skill set in a certain geography, is still wide open in most micro niches. People don't do that very well. And now with these tech tools, you don't have to run around in your car for 6 hours a day going from meeting to Chamber of Commerce and user groups. You can actually do it all online. So there's no excuse now, I guess.
There's no excuse. And I'm going to give you one tip before Sylvia interrupts us, because I can see she's got a question. So in your ATS, if you have great local recruiting resources, put them in as a customer. You can create automation automation messages, a touch point track, whatever it is, if you add your recruiting resources in as a customer and put them in an automation track, you're consistently recruiting to all of those beautiful venues. We forget that recruiting is selling just to a different audience. We're just pivoted a different direction. And so add those recruiting resources to your CRM because it's a selling opportunity in a different way.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I tell people that a lot. It's that everybody in your network is in your network.
Yes.
Right? Your vendor partners, your family, your friends, anybody that is a potential referral source should be in your CRM. The question I have that came in is about the personal branding for recruiters. In addition to being consistent and conveying that branding message for the company, what tips would you have for recruiters to build their personal brand?
As a company, I want you to enable them. I want you to give the branding tools that they need to put in their cover, in their cover on LinkedIn. I want you to give them content. And so if you create a central repository in your, intranet where they have the opportunity to represent the brand appropriately, but enable them, empower them to take a message. If they don't know how to market, give them the content to do so. And when we do our social selling course or social recruiting course, we accompany it with a 6-week campaign so that you can exercise the muscle of social recruiting and exercise the muscle of social selling. And that's really, really important.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm big on that personal branding. And then, of course, when somebody gets too big for their britches, you got to find a way to keep them in the company because they usually become so good, the superstars. And that's the natural thing. But even at SmartSearch, Sylvia is extremely passionate about the diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we broadcast her show out to as many people we can because she does that. It's relevant to us. It's important to us as a company. Our applicant tracking system has that kind of feature set built in. And so I think that's a good example of Sylvia just loves it and so passionate about that and does a great job on that.
Yeah,
so
don't be afraid of your recruiter getting too big. If that's the biggest problem you have, God bless you.
We have to empower other people's in life or else nobody's winning, to be honest. And specifically, the customer is not because we're holding back. Right. So I agree. Yeah. Okay, back to the automation track. So if you're new to automations, how and what do you do to get started?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. So a lot of customers are afraid to break it because I always say, if you have a broken process, you apply automation to it, you're just going to break it faster. So, there are some great places to start where you can kind of iron out the kinks. The first is referrals, just putting together a referral. So I call it the 4 R's. It's referrals, redeployment, re-engagement, and reactivation. So I'll say that again, referrals, redeployment, re-engagement, and reactivation. The only difference between re-engagement and reactivation is the duration of time they've been away from the brand, because that messaging might be a little bit different. And so if you start with a referral track for automation, just a push message to get those referrals, we actually ended up it was their a company's first automation. They had the tool for a year and were just like, I don't want to break anything. And so I was like, start with referrals. We're not going to break anything. It's not an ER. Nobody's going to die. So let's start with referrals. And we had a 63% response rate. So people want to tell you about other great people. So give them an avenue to do so. So starting with referrals is a great place. Redeployment. It's a great way to immediately impact your bottom line by keeping people working, right? We pay less unemployment as we get towards the end of the year. Redeployment is great for the brand. You can get great testimonials. So finding ways to do like a career forward program where you have a touch point at the 60 days before assignment end, 45, 30, 15. And it's talk tracks like, your assignment's about to come to an end, but fear not, we have the next step for you. Let's schedule a time where we talk about the skills that you've gained at this role and talk about what we're going to do next. When we use we language, it is really sticky because it feels like, okay, we're going to tackle my assignment ending together instead of them going, all right, I'm at the 60. I did a study in my backyard here in Northern California. Without a redeployment program, I lost out on 31 days of revenue. with people quitting before the assignment ended because, they see the assignment's going to end and they panic. And so they go elsewhere, as opposed to calling the recruiter and saying, I'm getting nervous, right? What we didn't do is we didn't communicate our openness to having that conversation about what their next role was going to be. So a good redeployment track would be taking the fear out of reaching out to your recruiter and talking about your fears, so that you can have a plan to move forward. And then that reactivation and re-engagement, when they've been away from the brand for about 6 months, we just want to, hey, we haven't talked to you in a little bit. Let's talk about, let's talk. Are you still in the market? What's changed? And sort of doing a pulse check of what's happening with your inventory that, you haven't. And then when you've got that year or more longer, that is a reactivation. And there may be, in our industry, we might do another W-2, another, or, a W-4, another I-9, whatever that may be. So at that year point, if there's specific modalities, if you're in healthcare that you're looking for, if there are specific skills that you're looking for, a reactivation campaign could be great. We're looking for people just like you, and being able to message those things in a meaningful way. So the 4 R's, if you don't know where to start with automation, is a great place to start. And nobody's going to get hurt in the process.
Sorry, you're going off mute. So I expect that some of that automation would be email drip campaigns, because do you run chatbots internally to employees to take their temperature? Or?
You can, but I would do like a text campaign or an email campaign. Text campaigns can be really meaningful, particularly with, volume transactional work, what we would consider more commercial work. The text campaign can be really meaningful.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, SmartSearch, that's a big feature we have, is SMS capability, but running that internally. So there's a book I read a long time ago, stuck with me, Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. So make sure that you're continuing to build relationships with the candidates that you have, or as Ben Franklin said, a penny saved is a penny earned. So why not keep people from quitting so we don't have to replace them? As you saw, it cost you 31 days of revenue in the previous company. So that makes sense. So
I categorize our energies as revenue preservation and revenue generation. Preserve the revenue that you've worked so hard to get, and believe it or not, your candidates are what we want to preserve. So the redeployment, creating that stickiness is important.
Right. Okay, so we talked about bots. We talked about email drip campaigns. Are there other automations or tools along those lines?
Well, I mean, there's
SMS, you mentioned.
Yeah. Oh, the SMS. You've got your bots, your texting, emailing. There's also now there's like a web tag. If you go to like amyporterfield.com, there are push notifications on your web browser now. So there's a million different avenues that you can take. The most popular right now are going to be email campaigning, text campaigning, and then you can do a workflow bot and or like a website bot to create that stickiness. But don't forget, particularly with commercial work, that face-to-face time. All of this automation and all of this is supposed to make way for, can you have an open house and invite people into your space? Can you go to an event where you might meet more people? I mean, again, all of this is to make it so you can create more meaningful relationships.
Totally, that we can't lose sight of that. It's all, even there's a lot of technology involved, even all the way up to what's coming, the metaverse level at some point. Even there's a lot of technology and there's less human touch, it's still a relationship, isn't it? So it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Sylvia, how are we doing? So we know that we were going to have 10 minutes on questions, but should we continue? I have more questions myself, but what are do we have enough questions that we need to stop and shut down?
No, I think that's fine. There is a comment about the keys being to be proactive, to be consistent, and to be constant, right? That you need to constantly be out there. So that seems to be one comment that we're having. But you're doing a good job of answering the questions. Let's roll.
Well, I'll ask you one more summary question here, skipping a few. Well, let me ask you one more. I think we have enough time. Okay. So COVID has changed everything. How are things before? How are things now? So you're giving people really with this, kind of another jab of, here's why it's important, because things have changed. So it's a reminder. So how did COVID change all these things?
Well, COVID, I mean, like we said earlier, I mean, a lot of trust was lost. with employers. Employees were expendable. And I think what we're seeing now is employers suffering, as a result in regaining trust. And so I see tools like Nectar that are really popular, where we can create more internal referrals and excitement and culture, community. In Art Pappas's keynote and in our 2022 predictions podcast episode, we talked about community being one of the most meaningful ways that we can create connection in a remote world and online communities. I mean, look at the book. Many of us had never met, and we wrote a book together. If you read the origin story of Together We Rise, we were getting together at Executive Forum in Florida on March 9th of 2020, just like everybody else. And we were going to celebrate Joyce Russell and the release of her book. And we were going to have a dinner, and we probably would have all had a great night and then walked away. And then the conference was canceled, the world shut down, and we decided to do what the rest of the world was doing and have a Zoom conversation. That Zoom conversation turned into a book club, that turned into a book, that turned into this big thing. So I believe wholeheartedly, and am a relevant example of being able to create community, camaraderie, connection remotely. And so communities, online communities, are going to be a meaningful way for you to create that connection internally. So COVID changed everything foundationally from a trust perspective. We now have more transparency going on from a mental health perspective and more resources for employees. So you've got Nectar that's helping to create some, more creative incentivizing internally, and colleague to colleague incentives, community. And so COVID changed so many things, some in a good way. I mean, you saw a 529% increase in the investment in communication tools like Zoom. You saw 146% increase in investments in interview products. So online interview products like Hinterview and Odro and the like. And so we're finding meaningful ways to engage with people. And now we have to find that same way to create connection and create. Employees right now are looking for acceptance. And so how do we provide that? And communities is a great way to do that. And you can do that through your intranet, Unily. There's a million different intranet products that you can use as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. In a Web3 world, which basically is AI, robotics, AR, VR, automated driving, quantum even eventually, community has so much equity for a business being able to start a community. So as far as this conversation, we upped our game, we attracted people. We automated with bots to basically handle more volume, but still have the personal relationship. Okay, so you got this one person, but we have to get them into a community where they're interacting together. So that even goes for the candidate side, because if you have candidates interacting, talking about it positively, hopefully, about an employer, and they're talking about this happened with this company, and this is good. This is how blockchain, crypto, and all these other companies that have seen hyper growth, and of course, some of them are in a downturn now, they've operated off communities. They're able to build companies and raise money quickly because they have a community that believes it, trusts, go. I think that has to apply to recruit. We haven't even touched on that today, the community side.
1,000,000%.
But that is coming. And it's just not going to be good enough to say, all right, you're in my database. I'll contact you when we have a job. Now candidates are basically wanting to be involved all the time. They want to trust. They want to have the faith that as their recruiter, whether HR or an agency, that you're going to be there for them when they need you. So I love that community word. All right, Sylvia, if there's no other questions, I'll ask the final one. Okay, great. Thank you for everything you did so far today, monitoring that. So any final best practices that you want to leave everybody with, or summary?
Yeah, look, we've covered a lot today. right? To attract new talent, we have to have, we got to be quick and dirty, right? And it's got to be mobile. It is really, really hard to sell your services if it's a painful process to get the candidate in the door. So we've got to be able to attract them, and we have to be easy to do business with. That's going to create that stickiness. We have to make, training and upskilling and create transparency within our organizations, and have communities, whether it's DE&I or understanding microaggressions, informing and training and learning. People want to resonate and want to connect to something, and they really want to learn. It's just like, when you're giving feedback during a review, people naturally want to learn. And sometimes it's the how. And then we have to be able to articulate the what's in it for them. What is in it for them? How are you differentiating yourself? How are you different than the other guy? And saying we have the best talent and we have the best leadership isn't going to cut it. I'm seeing firms now who are actually trademarking their technology ecosystems. I think it's brilliant. They are trademarking it, saying it's the X agency way, and articulating what they're, we used to be afraid to talk about our tech stack, for fear we'd give away the secret sauce. It is not the technology, it is how you apply it that is the secret sauce. So don't be afraid to work in partnership with branding to market your ecosystem and tell customers and candidates how you're different and how you're going to demonstrate those differentiators the entire time they engage with you. And automation has a piece in keeping all of that content in front of them all the time. And that's, we have over 60 trillion push notifications at any given time happening within the United States or globally. That's a ton of content. Our attention spans have gone from being able to concentrate for 30 minutes down to 7 to 10 minutes. So in learning and development, right, there's no longer, the LMS is going to go the way of the dinosaur, in my opinion. It's going to be the LXP, the learning experience, where we have micro learnings. On TikTok, our attention spans are now in microseconds. And so how do we create a good learning environment that sort of honors all of the different generations? We didn't even talk about the difference between, what's important to the Gen Z is going to be that tangible bot, and texting for the millennial, and emailing for the Gen Xer, and honoring all of the different generations. It's meeting the candidate where they are. And I think the truest form of that, and I'm going to oversimplify it, but I hope it has an impact, because I think Burt Bean does a great job of this at Insight Global: lead with empathy. Remember that the job seeking process stinks, that we are essentially seeking out the acceptance of strangers with a piece of paper. And if we lead with that and try and create a meaningful experience to change the perception that it's just this black hole transaction, you will make a difference in candidate attraction. You will be able to apply automation in an organic and meaningful way.
Yeah, wow. I'm always worried starting these conversations that I have enough questions if they'll get answered too fast. We couldn't get to all the questions we had.
We couldn't even get to all of them.
No, we can't. And out of respect for, so the majority of the people stayed because I think this is a super compelling conversation. I guess more good news. We're going to have this available on our blog probably within the next week or so. And we'll also have our staff do an otter, which basically turns speech into text, and then we can provide the points in the blog. How do people reach you, Lauren?
You can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm the GOAT leader. That's actually my URL. Or you can email me, Lauren@leapconsultingsolutions.com. I can be found on Twitter at lbuffjones. I'm on Instagram, leapjones, and then I've also got a website, www.leapconsultingsolutions.com.
Okay, all good. And we'll put that in the blog as well so people can easily find you. But of course, you can also just go to Amazon and buy the book, Together We Rise.
Yes.
That's where I got my copy. Sylvia seems to have ordering in bulk, so I'm not sure where she hers. But So for those of you that are here, that many of you are our customers, thank you. We love you. Many of you have been with us for decades, so don't stop. If you're new to SmartSearch, we're here to help. We're really turning a corner as a company. We're one of the first. Our goal is still to be one of the best. So we want to talk to you. We want your feedback on everything we talked about today. We'll continue to bring you through our Smart Leadership series. Amazing thought leaders like Lauren today. And thank you again, Lauren. So, but we want to know if this was compelling to you. So please reach Sylvia or myself. Or just reach out on the website on the chatbot or the chatbot we have, and then also just leave them a feedback form as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Lauren, thank you again. Sylvia, thank you for monitoring as well. Thank you to Tyler, who behind the scenes here did all of the heavy lifting on this. And we'll talk to you all soon. See you on the next Smart Leadership Series session.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Tyler, and thank you to the audience.
Take care, everyone.